Begin. Maria Delgado sat at her desk, the fluorescent lights humming above her. She was in her late 30s, but the lines around her eyes and the slight slump in her shoulders told a story of years spent battling drug cartels. As a top agent for the DEA, Maria had seen it all: the flashy arrests, the dangerous undercover ops, and the endless stream of new faces taking over old roles. Each victory felt like a drop in an ocean of crime, and lately, the fight felt heavier than usual. She picked up a worn photo from her desk. It showed her smiling, younger, standing next to a group of equally hopeful new recruits. Many of them were gone now, victims of the very war she was still fighting. Maria had always been tough, a real bulldog when it came to chasing down criminals. Her record was spotless, filled with successful busts and dangerous captures. But the constant grind, the never-ending cycle of violence and betrayal, was starting to wear her down. She often wondered if there would ever be a true end to it, a day when she could finally put her feet up and not worry about the next shipment, the next hit, or the next dead end. Just yesterday, her boss had praised her for closing a big case, another win in her long list of achievements. Yet the words fell hollow. She nodded, offered a tired smile, and returned to her desk, feeling the familiar weight of exhaustion settle upon her. The thrill of the chase had long since faded, replaced by a grim determination. She was good at her job, perhaps too good, because it meant she was always on the front lines, always in the thick of it. The only thing she truly wished for was a quiet life, far away from the dangers that clung to her like a second skin. Begin. The drone of the office lights was suddenly broken by the sharp ring of her desk phone. Maria picked it up, her mind still replaying the faces in the old photograph. It was her boss, Director Hayes, his voice tight with an unusual mix of disbelief and urgency. "Maria, you're not going to believe this," Hayes began. "We just got a message. It's from El Gato." Maria sat up straight, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten. El Gato. The name sent a shiver down her spine. Miguel El Gato Rojas was a ghost, a legend of brutality and cunning in the cartel world. He was responsible for countless deaths, vast drug shipments, and an empire built on fear. For years, the DEA had been trying to catch him, but he always slipped away, leaving a trail of blood and frustration. "What about him?" Maria asked, her voice steady despite the jolt of surprise. "He wants to surrender," Hayes said, and Maria could almost hear him shaking his head in disbelief. "But there's a catch. He'll only surrender to you. Personally." Maria frowned. This was unheard of. Cartel bosses didn't just give up, especially not one as powerful and elusive as El Gato. And why her? She had never had a direct run-in with him, though she had certainly dismantled many of his operations. A cold knot began to form in her stomach. It felt wrong. Too easy. "Are you sure this isn't some kind of trick, sir?" she asked, her instincts screaming a warning. "We've checked the source. It seems legitimate," Hayes replied, though his tone suggested he shared her doubts. He named a time and a place. Said he'd come in clean. No weapons, no resistance. "Just want to talk to you." Maria stared at the phone, a strange mix of disbelief and suspicion swirling within her. "El Gato," said Endring, and to her, it was a bombshell, a potential career-defining moment, but something felt deeply, terribly off. This was either the biggest break of her career or the most elaborate trap she had ever encountered. Begin. Despite her gut feeling, Maria knew she couldn't ignore the possibility of El Gato's surrender. This could be a massive win, a chance to cripple a major cartel. So, she pushed her unease aside and started a plan. She called her team together, the best of the best: Carlos, her reliable second-in-command, a quiet man with sharp eyes and even sharper shooting skills; Lena, the tech wizard who could hack into anything; and the twins, brothers Marco and Leo, who were unmatched in surveillance and tactical maneuvers. As they gathered in the briefing room, the air buzzed with a mix of excitement and tension. Maria laid out the details, watching their faces for any sign of the doubt she felt. They were professionals, though, their expressions mostly unreadable. Still, She saw a flicker of surprise in Carlos's eyes when she mentioned El Gato's personal request for her. "This is unusual, boss," Carlos said, his voice low. "Why you?" "That's what I'd like to know," Maria admitted. "But we can't ignore it. This could be a turning point." They spent hours going over maps, satellite images, and intelligence reports. The location El Gato had given was a remote hacienda, deep in a valley known for its hidden trails and dense foliage. It was a perfect place for a secret meeting or a deadly ambush. Maria made sure every detail was covered, every contingency planned for. They packed their gear, checked their weapons, and went over communication protocols again and again. Each member of the team was a finely tuned instrument, ready for whatever came their way. Yet, even with all the meticulous planning and the confidence in her team, Maria couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was very wrong. A cold, hard knot stayed in her stomach, a silent warning that this mission was unlike any other. And begin. The journey to the remote hacienda was long and quiet. The team moved in two unmarked SUVs, Lena expertly navigating the winding, unpaved roads using satellite maps. The landscape grew wilder with every mile, the asphalt giving way to dirt, and the scattered farmhouses disappearing behind thick forests of mesquite and cactus. The air inside the vehicles was thick with unspoken tension, each agent lost in their own thoughts, reviewing their roles and bracing for the unknown. Maria sat in the lead vehicle, her eyes scanning the horizon, searching for anything out of place. The hacienda was nestled deep in a valley, hidden from the main roads, a perfect place for secrets. As they got closer, the ancient stone walls of the hacienda slowly appeared through the trees, looking desolate and eerie in the fading light of dawn. It was bigger than she expected, a sprawling collection of buildings that seemed to stretch into the thick brush. "Looks quiet," Carlos murmured from the passenger's seat, his hand resting near his sidearm. "Too quiet," Maria responded, her voice barely a whisper. The silence was heavy, broken only by the crunch of their tires on the gravel path and the distant chirping of unseen birds. There were no lights, no signs of life, just the imposing, empty structure. It felt like a ghost town, a place that held forgotten stories. They parked their vehicles a safe distance away, hidden by a cluster of thorny bushes. Maria gave the signal, and her team moved out, silent and efficient, their movements practiced and precise. They spread out, creating a perimeter, their eyes peeled for any movement, any hint of El Gato or his men. The air was still, hot, and heavy, pressing down on them. Each step felt like a drumbeat, echoing the growing unease in Maria's chest. This was it, the moment they had prepared for, the moment her gut told her was all wrong. And begin. Maria and her team moved like shadows, sweeping through the hacienda's courtyard. Dust motes danced in the sparse sunlight, filtering through cracked windows. The air smelled of decay and neglect, but nothing else. No footsteps, no vespers, no hidden guards. The place truly seemed empty. Lena signaled from her position on the roof, her thermal scanner showing no heat signatures inside. Marco and Leo, positioned on the outer perimeter, reported the same. Maria's unease began to morph into frustration. Was it just a wild goose chase? Had El Gato simply played a cruel joke? "Clear," Carlos whispered into his comms. As he entered the main building, his rifle held high. Maria followed, her eyes darting from shadow to shadow. The silence was absolute, heavier than before. It pressed in on her, a suffocating blanket. Too quiet. Always too quiet. Suddenly, a searing flash erupted from the second floor, followed by the deafening roar of automatic gunfire. Shouts and screams ripped through the stillness. "Ambush! Down! Down!" Maria yelled, hitting the dirt as bullets whizzed overhead, kicking up dust and splinters from the ancient wooden beams. From every window, every doorway, figures emerged, their weapons spitting fire. They weren't just a few men, it was an army. Grenades exploded near the courtyard entrance, cutting off their escape route. Maria scrambled behind a fallen pillar, trying to get a bead on the attackers. Her team was returning fire, their training kicking in, but they were caught completely by surprise. "Lena, status!" Maria barked in her mic, but Static answered. "Marco, now!" Then, a chilling cackle echoed from above the gunfire, amplified by hidden speakers. "Welcome, Agent Delgado. Did you truly think I would surrender?" It was Delgado's voice, cold and mocking. The trap had sprung, and they were caught right in the middle of it. And begin. The hacienda became a storm of bullets and shouts. Maria, despite the shock of the ambush, fought with a fierce intensity. She returned fire, taking down several attackers who tried to flank her. Carlos, covering her, moved with a silent, deadly grace, his shots precise. Lena, from her rooftop position, used her sniper rifle to pick off targets, trying to create openings for the ground team. The twins, Marco and Leo, were a blur of motion, weaving through the chaos, laying down suppressing fire and communicating their positions even as the sheer volume of enemy fire threatened to overwhelm them. But it was clear they were outmatched. The cartel had too many men, too much firepower. They poured into the hacienda from every direction, seemingly endless. Explosions rocked the courtyard, throwing debris and dust into the air. Maria saw Marco go down, a dark stain blooming on his chest, and then Leo, trying to drag his brother to cover, was hit too. Her heart clenched, a sharp, terrible pain. "Lena, get out of there!" Maria yelled into her calms, but the crackle of static was the only reply. A moment later, a sickening crash echoed from the roof as a section of the old tile gave way. Carlos, his face grim, emptied a clip into a group of attackers rushing their position. "We need to fall back, Maria. We're being swarmed." Maria knew he was right. They were being pushed further and further into the crumbling hacienda, away from their vehicles, away from any hope of escape. The air grew thick with smoke and the metallic smell of blood. Every wall seemed to sprout new enemies, every shadow a fresh threat. They were fighting with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. The sheer weight of the cartel's numbers was crushing them, slowly but surely. Maria felt a sharp pain in her side, a bullet graze, but she ignored it, pushing through the agony. She had to keep fighting, not just for herself, but for the fallen. And begin. Amidst the deafening gunfire and the desperate fight for survival, a chilling thought pierced through Maria's battle-hardened mind. This wasn't just an ambush. This was too precise, too well-coordinated. The cartel knew their exact entry points, their planned positions, even the precise moment they would be most vulnerable. The way Delgado had called her by name, the taunting in his voice, wasn't random. This trap was built specifically for her team, for her. How could Delgado have known all of this? Only a handful of people knew the details of their mission. Director Hayes, her team, and the small intelligence unit that had vetted the surrender tip. The thought twisted her gut more than the bullet graze. Someone had talked. Someone from within their own trusted circle. A flash of memory. Carlos's surprise when she mentioned Delgado's personal request. Hayes's tone, full of doubt, yet still pushing the mission forward. The ease with which the supposed source of the surrender tip had been verified. It all clicked into place, a horrifying puzzle. This wasn't just about catching Delgado. It was about destroying Maria and her team. Humiliation, total annihilation. She ducked behind a crumbling wall, reloading her weapon, her mind racing. The betrayal felt like a poison spreading through her veins, colder and more insidious than any bullet. It wasn't just the cartel they were fighting. They were fighting ghosts, shadows from their own side. The meticulous planning, the complete lack of any other cartel activity that might have distracted them, the pinpoint accuracy of the enemy fire, it all screamed inside job. The idea was a bitter pill to swallow. Someone they worked with, someone they trusted, had sold them out. And they were paying the ultimate price. And begin. The fighting raged, but Maria's focus narrowed. Her eyes scanned the upper floor, searching for the source of Delgado's voice. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows on a balcony overlooking the courtyard. He was a man of average height, dressed in crisp, expensive clothes, a stark contrast to the grime and chaos around him. A cruel smile played on his lips, and his eyes, even from a distance, seemed to gleam with dark amusement. It was El Gato. He held no weapon, simply surveyed the carnage he had orchestrated. His voice, amplified once more, cut through the din of gunfire. "Agent Delgado, a pleasure to finally meet you, though not in the way you expected, perhaps." He laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers down Maria's spine. "You see, your agency, your government, they believe they can stop us. They believe they can clean up this world. But you are wrong, little agent. So very wrong." He gestured broadly at the dying hacienda, at Maria's dwindling team. "This is a lesson, a very public, very humiliating lesson. I lured you here, the great Agent Delgado, the one they praise, the one who brings down my operations. I wanted to show the world, and especially your pathetic DEA, how easily you can be broken, how easily your efforts can be turned to dust." His eyes met hers, and Maria felt a cold fury unlike anything she had ever known. "Your team, your reputation, your precious agency, all will crumble today. This is not just an ambush, Maria. This is a message that El Gato is untouchable, and those who try to touch him will suffer. You and your friends will be examples. The world will see your failure, your destruction." He paused, savoring the moment. "And then your agency will be dismantled piece by painful piece. And begin." El Gato's words fueled Maria's rage, sharpening her focus. Her team was decimated, broken. Carlos was still fighting, but he was pinned down, injured. Lena was gone. The twins gone. Maria was all that was left of her elite unit. But she wouldn't let El Gato have the satisfaction of her complete defeat. Not now, not ever. With a primal scream, Maria rose from her cover, ignoring the searing pain in her side. She emptied her rifle into the nearest group of cartel gunmen, dropping 3 of them before they could react. This wasn't about winning the fight. It was about survival. It was about creating an opening, however small. She spotted an old, rusted propane tank near the far wall of the courtyard, a remnant of the hacienda's past. A desperate, dangerous idea sparked in her mind. It was a long shot, but it was their only shot. "Carlos!" The tank. "Cover me!" she yelled, her voice raw. Carlos, seeing her intent, understood. He laid down a furious barrage of suppressing fire, drawing the cartel's attention. Maria sprinted, a target in the open, dodging bullets that chipped away at the ancient stone around her. She reached the tank, fumbling for a grenade from her vest. Pulling the pin, she slammed it against the tank, hoping the impact would be enough to cause a leak. She then tossed a second grenade, this one a flashbang, towards El Gato's balcony, momentarily blinding and disorienting him and his immediate guards. The sudden, bright explosion drew more fire, giving her a precious few seconds. She aimed her pistol at the damaged tank and fired. A spark, then a hiss. The propane was leaking. "Go, Carlos! Go!" she screamed, pointing toward the narrow gap in the crumbling wall that led to the dense brush outside. The tank erupted in a fiery roar, sending a wave of heat and shrapnel across the courtyard. The explosion tore through the hacienda, collapsing parts of the building and throwing cartel members into chaos. And begin. The explosion was a monstrous roar, throwing Maria forward, scraping her skin against the rough ground. Dust and debris rained down, and the screams of the cartel gunmen mixed with the crackling of flames. The hacienda, once a symbol of empty grandeur, was now a fiery tomb. Maria scrambled to her feet, her ears ringing, her body aching from the impact and the bullet graze. She didn't look back. There was no time. She saw Carlos, limping but moving, disappear through the hole she'd created in the wall. Maria followed, pushing through the thick cloud of smoke and the confusion that now reigned. She heard shouting, orders being barked in Spanish, but the explosion had bought them precious seconds of chaos. Once outside, the dense undergrowth provided immediate cover. Maria pushed through the thorny bushes, ignoring the new scratches tearing at her clothes and skin. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each one a struggle. The pain in her side was a constant, throbbing reminder of how close she'd come to not making it out. She ran until her legs burned, until her lungs screamed for air. The sounds of the hacienda, the gunfire and explosions, slowly faded behind her, replaced by the chirping of crickets and the rustling of leaves. She was alone. Carlos had vanished into the darkness, and she couldn't risk calling out. Not yet. Finally, she collapsed behind a thick cluster of cacti, the moon just beginning to rise, casting long, eerie shadows. The air was cool against her sweaty skin, but her blood felt like ice. Her team, her friends, were gone. Lena, Marco, Leo, and Carlos? She didn't know if he had made it. The thought twisted her gut, a new kind of pain. She was alive, but the cost was unbearable. The hacienda was a distant, smoldering ruin, a monument to their sacrifice and to El Gato's brutal display. End. Begin. The cool night air did little to soothe the burning in Maria's chest. It wasn't just the pain from her injuries. It was the raw, searing agony of loss. She closed her eyes, and all she saw were the faces of her team. Marco and Leo, their youthful energy extinguished. Lena, brilliant and gone. And Carlos, whose fate remained a cruel question mark. The bitter taste of betrayal filled her mouth, more potent than any dust or smoke from the hacienda. Someone had fed them to the wolves. Someone had signed their death warrants. El Gato's mocking laughter echoed in her ears, his words a venomous promise of destruction. He thought he had won. He thought he had broken her. He was wrong. Maria pushed herself up, her muscles screaming in protest. The exhaustion, the weariness that had settled over her for so long, was gone, replaced by a cold, unwavering resolve. She was no longer just a DEA agent fighting a never-ending war. She was a woman stripped bare, left with nothing but fury and a thirst for justice. The quiet life she had once yearned for seemed a distant, foolish dream. There would be no peace until El Gato paid for what he had done, until the traitor who sold them out was unmasked and punished. Maria pulled out her satellite phone, its screen cracked but still functional. She would call for extraction, report the catastrophe. But her report would be more than just facts and figures. It would be a declaration of war, a silent, personal war. She would hunt El Gato down, no matter how long it took, no matter what it cost. And she would find out who had betrayed them. This wasn't over. This was only the beginning. The fight had become personal, and Maria Delgado was ready to make them regret the day they had underestimated her. End.